What is up, guys? It is Carly here, bringing you another comparison video where I compare a horror book with a horror movie, the horror movie that is based off of. And today I am going with Psycho versus, of course, Psycho. Now I believe this book is from like the year before Psycho, the actual movie, came out, which is interesting. I want to say 1959 this was written. I think I read somewhere. If I'm completely wrong, then I'm wrong. But I'm pretty sure that is when this was written or published rather. And then of course Psycho came out in the year 1960. Alfred Hitchcock. Book is written by Robert Bloch, and yeah, I've always been curious on this book. For years now, I've always wanted to read it, as well as the sequels. I believe there's actually 3 sequels. JP and I were looking at it last night, but so I would like to read the other ones. But yeah, of course, the movie is something I grew up watching. I just cut this VHS tape at Half Price Books for $1 a few weeks back now, and decided to pop it into the VCR, and then I ended up picking this up recently as well at Barnes & Noble. Actually had this 65th anniversary edition print here, so figured this would be an easy one to do because obviously this book is pretty thin. So it literally took me 3 days to read this, which even with it being small is kind of impressive for me because I've not been into reading for the past few years, and I'm just recently trying to get back into doing it frequently. So yeah, this took me 3 days to get down, and it was pretty good. It kept my interest despite knowing the story and stuff. I guess that might be part of why it kept my interest, as I already know the story, and I was kind of more so interested in seeing how it differs from the movie, because I always heard they were pretty different. But anyway, to get into the book, it's the basic story. You have, the woman, which one thing that irritates me, and I was telling JP, is actually in the book, her name is Mary Crane, where in the movie, of course, it's Marion Crane. And I believe that's the only name that's like slightly different from the book to the movie, which is like extra annoying because it's like if all the names were slightly different or completely different, it wouldn't like stick out to me. But it's very jarring to see like Mary Crane. Like I kept like reading it as Marion when I was reading the book, so that was just like a slight little peeve that was getting under my skin. But Mary, of course, she is at work. You guys know the story of Psycho. She steals money from one of the clients at her work that she was supposed to deposit into the bank, and then she starts driving off with a plan to meet up with her boyfriend, who lives quite a while away, and basically just start a new life with him, get married to him, and live happily ever after. And of course, she happens upon the Bates Motel, and that is where Norman Bates and his mother live. And one thing leads to another. She winds up dead, and then the rest of the movie is trying to figure out what happened to her and what the whole deal is with the Bates Motel. So yeah, like I said, you guys should know what Psycho is by now. But same plot as you get with the movie, but it's very weird. This is very different from the movie in like a lot of small ways, but at the same time it's exactly the same. Like it follows the same storyline, and there's even scenes like in the movie that were in the book but are kind of in different sequence. Like they're the part where they go into the sheriff's house in the movie. That doesn't really happen in the book, but they do see him at church, which they do in the movie. And then after seeing him at church, I believe there was a part where they go to his house and stuff like that. And then they actually meet him at like the actual sheriff's office, and it's not just like this kind of informal thing. Little things like, obviously, a lot of people know like Norman Bates in the book was fat, bald, like in his 40s, where in the movie they make him like in his I think he's supposed to be 25 in the film, and of course handsome, young, and just like seems like a sweet, normal guy. Where I feel like in the book it's kind of stereotypical sleazebag, which I thought was going to be kind of like not going to work for me in the book, but it doesn't focus on that too much. Like, I thought that was going to be a big thing where it's like, oh, he's just like this typical slobby sleazy motel runner, and they don't really focus on that too much. So they kind of just give the description at the beginning, and that kind of is what it is. And of course, he's kind of babied by his mother, and I guess, like, you know, kind of plays into him being a mama's boy. He's like in his 40s, kind of just sits around, reads, does his taxidermy, which even that's not a big thing in the book either. Like, there's actually just one small blip where it's like he has a stuffed squirrel in his parlor, and instead of birds, which is interesting. And that's kind of that. Yeah, just so many like small differences that are interesting and notable, being that I've seen the movie so many times at this point, and I can really kind of compare them. Like, for instance, I mean, Mary Crane, like, she's staying in cabin 6 instead of cabin 1, because cabin 6 is actually the cabin closer to the office, the way the book's written. And then by the end of the movie, Sam Loomis and Lila, when they come, they check into cabin 1, which is farther away. So it's kind of like messes with your head a little bit, like picturing that. And then, like, the beginning parts where Mary arrives, they eat dinner up at the house. He actually does take her up at the house, like, after, you know, he's just kind of like, we have to be quiet because my mother's ill and whatnot, but they do go up to the house to have their dinner and kind of awkward conversation. And trying to think if there's any other, like, oh, there definitely are other, like, major small differences, but like I said, the story is exactly the same. It's just like these small little things, and there's different stuff that I feel you could just tell, like, Alfred Hitchcock probably just read this story and was like, huh, you know, I can make that, like, play out better probably in the movie. I think the movie overall works better. I was telling JP, like, this is like an older book, obviously, but when you read it, it actually kind of, it doesn't have like old dialogue, really, if that makes sense. Like, when I read it, it feels like something someone could have wrote today, where in the movie, of course, they kind of talk like it is the 1960s, and they're very kind of proper and formal and stuff like that, where the book, I didn't really get that vibe, which was interesting to me. But there's stuff I like in the book too. Everything seems more put together. Like, you really kind of follow Mary more so on her road trip, it feels like, and it kind of like almost makes more sense in the head to like picture it, because she actually you know, she's going from like state to state. It kind of highlights how she's been driving for like 18 hours straight or something crazy like that at one point, and she's exhausted, and she switches cars twice in the book. So I thought that was kind of good, because in the movie she seems like, right off the bat, you just think like this girl's gonna get caught like immediately. She's being so suspicious and not really covering her tracks. Like, she switches out the car, the cop sees her do it, so it's like that was almost pointless, where in the book it's like, oh, okay, so she did like 2 junky car swaps in 2 completely different areas to like really cover her tracks. And she seems a little more calculated, which I thought was cool to read play out in the book. And just different thing, I don't know, the timeline just feels almost more flowy in the book than it does in the film, where it's like the film just kind of goes from scene to scene. I mean, it's a movie. If it, you know, if it, obviously that's the one thing books do right, is they can take their time and really establish like this timeline and make it flow, where in a movie you gotta keep going, or else this would be like 3 hours long. So that is not a like fault of the film at all. It's just like cool, rather, to read the book and see like, oh, okay, this almost like clicks better in my head and makes more sense, and I can visualize like how big her journey, like Marion's journey, would have been. Where in the movie it almost feels like she gets to the motel and it's like, really, are you that tired? Like, you don't really process like how long she's been traveling. I also think the movie, like the scene, like I said, like the whole when they're having dinner together, think it definitely plays out better in the film. Just the dialogue, the intensity of it, you can really feel it a lot more, where in the book it's you know, more so Norman just kind of starts losing his shit. Like, he has like a little mental break down, yelling at her. It feels very typical almost of how someone would probably actually act in real life when they're angry, where in the movie it's almost done more classy and in a more sinister way, where Anthony Perkins does a good job of, like, it's not like he's raising his voice necessarily, he just is saying stuff very intense, and, like, you could see the annoyance in his eye when she says to, like, put his mother away and whatnot. The other thing, like, reading it, I was trying, like, my best to think, like, now, if I was reading this, would I know, spoiler alert, that the mother has been dead this whole time, like, by the end, and Norman is up to the whole shenanigans? Would I know that if I was just reading the book and knew nothing of the story? I really can't tell. It's hard. You just can't. I mean, once you know a twist, and especially if you know the book is going to be the same as the movie and such, it's hard to put yourself, it's pretty much impossible to put yourself in that place. But I think, if I had to, it seems like it is well written, because there is actual, like, lines of dialogue of him talking back and forth with his mom, like, arguing with her kind of, like, berating him and always making him seem like he's no good and that he needs his mom and all that stuff. So there's some good back and forth throughout the book that, of course, you don't really get as much of in the movie. So I think it does do a good job. It's just hard, obviously, at this point. But overall, Psycho, like I said, took me 3 days to read it. Easy book to read. Just flies by. How many? There's, like, it's 175. It doesn't even reach 200 pages. 175 pages. Not the longest of chapters either. So this was definitely a good one. And I did like it. I think this and the movie both have their different high notes, where something might work better in the movie or better in the book, stuff like that. Overall, I do think I would say the movie is definitely does a better job, because that was another thing I was telling JP. I was like, why does Alfred Hitchcock, like, get all this credit for, like, making this crazy storyline when really it's based off a book, and, like, the book he's taking from the book. It's not like he changed it up, kind of like the ending of The Mist or anything like that. And then as I'm reading it, I'm like, I understand now, because it's like Alfred Hitchcock was, like, the master of suspense, and he knew what he was doing, and he took elements of the book and I think just made them better in the whole film, and made them more intense, and made them scarier, made the dialogue a little smarter, and made the twist all the more terrifying. So yeah, but that's not a knock on the book whatsoever. I still thought it was very good, and I would recommend it just for the sake of history, if anything, because I'm sure most horror fans, if pretty much all of them, should have at least seen Psycho at one point or another in their lifetime, and probably are big fans of it like I am. So this is definitely worth checking out, just for the curiosity, if you love Psycho, Bates Motel, the sequels, all that fun stuff. And I do want to read, like, Psycho 2, because the plot sounds hilarious to me. It's very completely not at all like the Psycho 2 that you got in movie form. It was very much its own sequel to this book. And then I think, like I said, JP was looking them up last night, and I believe there's a part 3 and then a part 4 that he said was written by a different author, like, just several years back, maybe in 2016 or something like that. So that's intriguing. I'll definitely be trying to be on the lookout for those and pick them up. If, I don't know, they're probably not easily accessible. I don't really know. But anyway, yeah, good book. Good movie, of course. Perfect movie in my opinion, and great book. So recommend. Yeah, guys, that'll do it for this one. I just bought The Shining last night. Every time we go see a movie, if we have time to kill, like, JP and I, or if I'm just, like, in an area of a Barnes & Noble, I've kind of been, like, on a kick of wanting to go in and buy at least 1 or 2 books, which I know I'm going to regret, because I'm going to end up with way too many and be overwhelmed, kind of like I have here on the Leaning Tower of DVDs. I'm going to end up with way too many books, and but, it's whatever. It'll motivate me to read more, read faster, read more every day. I've been trying to read a little bit every day, and it's been working out. Once you get back into reading, you do look forward to it. I feel like it's one of those things that you have to commit to, and Because if you don't, like, it could be like, it feels like a chore, like, I don't want to read a chapter of this book. But if you actually, like, take the time, like, take an hour, half hour to an hour each day and say, I'm gonna read this, and then really get yourself invested, you, like, look forward to it again. Because that's how I was in high school, and then, like, you know, life started lifing and whatnot, and I got out of it. But anyway, I'm rambling. I'm reading The Shining now. I just started it today on chapter 4 already. And that'll probably be like my next comparison video. And yeah, there might be some in between that here and there. Trying to do like more like hunting videos, going out and to thrift stores and stuff. I did one the other day, but I only went to 3 places. Not the other day, it was literally like a few weeks ago, and I only went to like 3 places, so I wanted to go out again one day and add to it and then upload it. So we'll get there when we get there. But anyway, I'm gonna stop talking, and I will talk to you guys in the next video.